The athlete as entrepreneur has evolved over the years, and as the NCAA recently cleared student athletes to pursue name, image, and likeness deals, it opens up the realm of opportunity far sooner than one would think. And two-time NBA All-Star, serial entrepreneur, and investor Baron Davis is the prime example of business beyond the game. He most recently added director to his skill set. And I want to welcome him to the show right now. Thank you so much for being here, Baron.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I would love to start with your most recent endeavor, Domino, the Battle of the Bones. Congratulations on the release and on the release on video on demand. So it just came out on VOD, but tell me, how did the people in your childhood influence the idea for the movie?
I would say, growing up in South Central Los Angeles, you see a lot. As a kid, you see a lot of stuff, a lot of negative things, or just the environment has this negative aura around it. But there are a ton of characters, right? A ton of characters, a ton of just people who are, to me, either you pay attention to all the wrongs that's happening, or you can make light of it. And so I think that this movie was just really inspired by my childhood, being a kid at the Domino table, trying to get in the game, and listening to the OGs or the older people, and the way that they spoke, the way they communicated. And, for me, it was just like, man, Dominoes is an interesting game because, these people get along, right? Mm-hmm. And naturally, they don't even talk to each other or have anything to talk about, in a normal day. So it was weird how this instrument, became almost like a talking piece. And so as I got older and, really wanted to make a movie, I felt like Domino's was like a cultural epicenter where everybody had their different perspectives and their different way of playing. And so I felt like this is a movie that, I can continue to, live out the stories or different storylines. And that's why I wanted to do Domino.
Okay, and so it's an all-star cast. You got Snoop Dogg, David Arquette, Lou Beatty Jr., Tiny Lester, a lot of different people in it. And so I want to know, though, when you were in the NBA, of course, two-time NBA All-Star, 13 years in the game, you actually learned about directing while you were in the NBA, right? So I read a story about how you would look at the directors of commercials while you were filming. Tell me a little bit about that experience and how it informed your decision-making ability as a director now.
Yeah, it was crazy because, when you're in the NBA, you're like, I just want a commercial. I just want a commercial. And, my rookie year, I didn't really have one. But I finally got into a Nike commercial. And when I got into the Nike commercial, I found myself, after the commercial, hanging out in the stands, talking to the cast, talking to other talent, and then following the directors around because I was like, well, what are they doing? They just sit behind the camera. They just sit behind the camera. And so just so happens it was, shout out to Jimmy Smith and the Hughes brothers. It was the Hughes brothers, and they were shooting the Ray Gun movie, the Ray Gun commercial for Nike. So, what better mentor and teacher or somebody you can just sit behind and listen to how they were communicating. And then I think it went from there to Paul Hunter, who's a great commercial director. Mm-hmm. And then I started signing up to take these cameo roles in movies, just so I could be on set. Tim Story let me on set. I was on set and hung out King's Ransom, that movie. So it was just kind of like being a gym rat. I was a set rat. So I love hanging around directors. I love sitting in the director chair and just actually seeing what was happening. And so that kind of became how I immersed myself, in this industry.
Okay, and so you know what else I wonder, Baron? What did you learn about business while being in the NBA? You always say you got your MBA from the NBA. And so is there one specific thing that you would say that you learned from the game that you now apply to making business deals, choosing investments that align with what you want to do?
Well, we started a company called Business Inside the Game. And with Business Inside the Game, that's why I say I got my MBA from the NBA, because it forced me to learn and know everybody and what they do, right? So when I retired, I just kind of wrote my own org chart of, how these teams are designed. And then I start going through all the different opportunities for a job, right? And so just thinking about, what's my message going to be to, young students and young entrepreneurs. It's like, hey, there's 1,000 jobs, 1,500 jobs associated with the NBA outside of being an NBA player, right? And pretty much 80% of those jobs, you'll have a longer career than 13 years, as a player. And so, really start to look at like how the industry was connected, right? And then where the holes were, where the opportunities were, and where we were missing out as players, retired players, things like that, because you kind of get typecast and fall in these categories. And so for me, I wanted to know what everybody did, I guess because I'm nosy or curious. And and with that, I kind of translated that if I can build a model and I can teach you, how to make it to the NBA and show you where all the jobs are, I can do the same thing for a lemonade stand for an entrepreneur, right? I can do the same thing in music, same thing in entertainment. So the industries have different names and different codes, right? But the industries are the same as far as the opportunity and the job descriptions that, go with these necessary positions. So Business Inside the Game grew as, a platform of membership for, athletes, entrepreneurs, cultural agents, right? Change makers to have dinners, mixers, and really get together to talk about their superpower and talk about where we can, fill in some of these holes and these gaps.
You know what, when we look at athletes now, they have an opportunity to be entrepreneurs sooner. When you look at the NCAA now allowing student athletes to make name, image, likeness deals, have deals based off of their name, image, likeness. It opens up a huge realm of opportunity for students to be able to do more sooner. And I just wonder, what's your read on that, on how students will be able to make the best of this opportunity, thinking thinking retirement,
Yeah, I think, when you go to college, I always say, like, when you go to college, when you leave with nothing. But debt, right? You leave with nothing but debt. And then even for a basketball player, it's like, oh, you got this free scholarship, but like when you graduate with nothing, right? And you give in, your heart and soul. And even for an athlete before, you couldn't even get a job, right? So not only are you leaving with nothing, you're leaving in debt with a hope, wish, dream, and a prayer of like going from a zeronaire to a millionaire, right? And so there's only 300 people, really 88 people that get that opportunity, or may have that opportunity every year. So you just like I think for us, like the opportunity to like count your blessings, right? If you go to school, right, I think it's important that you do understand who you are, have a job. I think what's happening with the NCAA, they have to change because some kids can find their career in college, right? Some athlete has the opportunity to make the most that they're ever going to make in college, right? And from there, they can get a great job. They can become who they need to. But imagine all the great college players, right, that came into the NCAA, had great careers, or we know them for who they are. And, that never propelled their brand to become, who they could have been in the business world, in the sports world, only because we looked at them as an athlete. So I think this gives, everybody the opportunity to make up, and build their brand so they can have some residual income.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of residual income, business deals, now I have to ask you, back in December, it was reported that you and Master P were in talks to buy Reebok from Adidas. And I want to know, what's the latest on the deal? Do you have an expected timeline of when the deal may be complete?
No.
Okay.
No. I think for myself and P, we connected to go after Reebok. Obviously, we're not the only ones going after Reebok. So, it's just a long process. It's a long process. I think that when we made the statement, people were like, "Yo, you guys are crazy." When I went through the process, it became more and more realistic and doable. But there are other, bidders and competitors, so it's not much I can say about that. But I can say that, we are looking at, just kind of taking that idea of Black owned and creating our own fund that'll allow us to have, a seat at the table, and not just, Reeboks, but also real estate deals, also a branded house, a house of brands, right? So thinking about, we as a people, we love to create. We're great. We're creator friendly, and so where can we find, our corporate footprint, and where can we rally, our finances and the money that we raise to support or to turn a business into people of color on.
You know what? I cover entrepreneurship and personal finance here as well. And so, shot in the dark here, what do you think would be an important first step when we talk about ownership within the Black community, when we're talking about, building up assets that will sustain you, having passive income, What do you think is the single most important thing people need to understand so that they could get started?
I would say save, right? The best advice I got from my grandmother, right? And you know what she told me? Save your money, boy. Boy, save your money. Stop giving people your money.
Right.
Save your money, boy. That's all she said. Save your money. I wouldn't give these people your money. She used to go off on me when I was 19 and a rookie, because I was like, "Oh, Granny, I'm a millionaire." She's like, "Save your money. Save 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 your money." So I tell people this all the time: save your money. And then when you want to invest in yourself first, right? My grandmother also taught me that a fool and his money will soon part, right? So if you're a fool and you got money, keep money over here, keep foolishness over here, and build barriers and parameters that, guard you from spending it all. Yeah. But if you take that saving mentality, right, and you say like, "Hey, I'm making an honest job. I'm a small business, but 20%, 10%, I'm going to give to myself, and I'm going to put in this bucket and treat this bucket as my agent. And I'm going to let this nest egg build up as an entrepreneur," right? Because everybody has, entrepreneur ambitions, but it's like, we gotta go to work to get an honest living. So how do we create this reserve, right? And how do we build up this reserve tank that can support whatever kind of transition, right? Whatever next step that we need, whatever stability we need for the home. Right. And then I would say for, Black people, right? When we take that mentality, right, and we start locking arms, right, and start to build a process that we trust, right? So there's not a process that's out here, right, or a template that's out here for a Black person to trust that process, right? There are opportunities, right? There are corporate initiatives and positions and things like that. But Black people as a whole, right? Black people as a whole, we don't trust no process. And we don't have a process for Black people to trust, to go to build trust. And I think in order for us to kind of change the economics, to change our seat at the table, to switch the numbers. Like, if you think about all of the wealthy Black people in America, right? You know, you take 10%, you take 5% of those people, and you just back them into a multifamily office, right? Back them into a multifamily office with their own financial infrastructure, and you have power, right? And I think it starts with whomever, you know, whatever clique, you know what I mean? Whatever crew, whatever company, you know, whatever you want to call it, whatever,
right.
We pull our resources together. Like, it takes a village to raise a child, and we've never put, you know, our economic resources in building an economic village.
All right, very well said, Baron. And so I want to close this out now. I have to ask you about your recently launched podcast, The Point Guard. You talk to some of the best point guards in the game, current and retired, I believe. And so you talk to your hero, Isaiah Thomas, who's also from Chicago, like I am. Tell me something. What was, in the last 30 seconds or so, can you tell me what was the most important thing you took away from the interview?
From Isaiah, he almost had me crying. So I grew up, you know, it was Magic, Isaiah. And the only reason Magic wins over because I'm from LA. But Isaiah was the one I could relate to. Isaiah was the one that, you know, I felt like I missed having a chance to play against. And I would say, as far as a mentor, as a guide, as a big brother, as a foundational source, I think a lot of what I'm saying today comes from my conversations with Isaiah on the TNT set, on the NBA TV set. So in our conversation, for me, like, I learned what it meant to be a point guard, right?
Okay.
Like, I wish I could have asked him this when I was playing. I probably would have been that much better.
Yeah.
But I really learned what it meant to be a point guard, and like how to interact with your coach, right? How to take responsibility, how to understand, you know, your level of responsibility is predicated on everything that happens with the team. And I think that was like the seed that I missed, right?
Okay. Wow. I will have to interview you about that entire topic some other time because the science behind it just sounds so incredible. But I want to thank you so much for joining us, Baron Davis, two-time NBA All-Star and serial entrepreneur, and congratulations again on Domino.
Thank you.